All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to our video recorded lecture. This is now to complete or finish our lesson 5 about agenda setting and policy problem identification. So during our synchronous class yesterday, last Monday, we're able now to cover what policy problem is. Okay, the six characteristics of a policy problem, and then we've already started discussing agenda setting, its definition and the various types, and bakit mahalaga ang agenda setting. Now, why is it powerful? Okay. Now, at this point, we shall start now with additional mechanisms on how policies are prepared into an agenda and how are actually these mechanisms being prepared now to create policies now on our in our country. Okay, now you have to take note, my dear students, that crises are not the only mechanism. Okay, crisis is one and it is very important. Kaya inuna ko siya kanina. But you have to take note that political events and elections can also change the agenda. Pag nagbago tayo ng pangulo, kapag nagbago tayo ng governor, kapag ka naghalal tayo ng bagong mayor, and even yung majority ng mga members of the House of Representatives, nagkakaroon yan ng priority. Okay? That is why elections are not simply changes in personnel. Hindi lang yan pagbabago sa tao, pagbabago sa staff, pagbabago sa mga empleyado natin sa pamahalaan. In fact, that change carries with them the policy agenda changes as well. Okay? Siyempre, halimbawa, may bagong mayor, may bagong idea, may bagong vision na gustong gawin, di ba? And it's very rare sa isang politiko na ituloy yung mga policy agenda ng sinundan po niyang opisyal. Siyempre, kailangan niyang gumawa ng bagong brand eh. Kailangan niyang gumawa ng legacy niya. Kasi kung itutuloy niya yun, ang maaalala lang ay yung former at hindi na yung sa kanya. Kaya kailangan niyang gumawa ng mga bagong programa na tatatak yung identity niya sa mga tao. Okay? Now, pangalawa is yung mga indicators at saka yung mga data. No? Pag-usapan natin for example ang dengue. Biglang tumaas yung kaso ng dengue. Dahil diyan, mapipilitan ang pamahalaan na kumilos. Okay? Another example, biglang tumaas yung tinatawag nating poverty incidence, no? And then of course, nagkakaroon ng mas malala at mas mahal na damages ng mga baha taon-taon. Diyan yung mga bagay na nagtutulak sa pamahalaan para kumilos because there is an indicator, there is a number, okay? At pag tumaas yan, aalma ang mga tao, may pressure tuloy ang pamahalaan. You have to take note that numbers and data can signal that something requires intervention at doon papasok ang pamahalaan. Pangatlo ay yung tinatawag nating interest groups at saka mga civil society organizations. Halimbawa nito yung mga farmers organizations, yung mga business groups, mga NGOs, mga professional organizations like sa amin for example, meron kaming national professional organization ng mga teachers, okay? And even mga people's organization. Practically, hindi nila inaantay ang pamahalaan. In fact, they actually pressure the government to do something. For example, yung last no na dinesisyonan ng COMELEC and Bank, hiningi nila na yung mga service credit grants ng mga teachers na nag-serve ng election ay walang expiration. Kasi ang service credit po, ito po yung parang mga libreng leave credits po kung saan pwedeng umabsent ang isang permanent employee nang hindi nakakaltasan. Gawa nga na siya ay naglingkod beyond working hours, kaya they are entitled for service credits. Okay? And then, yung last one dito, ay hindi pa naman ito last one. At yung next one is yung lobby. Okay? When you say um, um, Okay. When you say lobby in politics in governance, practically, a lobby is more of like an interest group na uh, or a group of people na nagtatrabaho together to persuade a public official and even lawmakers to pass, change, or block laws and policies. Okay? So, um, pag sinabi mong sila ay mga lobby, okay, ibig sabihin noon is sila yung mga taong nagtutulak para magkaroon ng batas or harangin ang isang panukalang batas. Okay? So yun yung parang gawain nila. Okay? Ngayon, yung mga lobby po natin, they can submit position papers, no? They can mobilize constituencies and even they can file petitions or build coalitions para po maipush ang isang polisiya or even an agenda setting for that matter. And last one would be media. Yeah, right now I consider media as one of the most influential mechanism for policy agenda. Why? Because media is the most visible. And in the Philippines, visibility matters because an issue that nobody talks about is politically easier to ignore. Yung example ko dito, di ba, yung yung um, yung tawag dito, yung documentary, no? Documentary ni Cara David as a as a mechanism for agenda setting, 'di ba? Alam mo napaka powerful nung um, nung expose ni Cara David, no? I would consider that Cara David's documentary served as a highly effective mechanism for agenda setting, no? Yung I forgot the title Paraisong Basura or the landfill sa was that in Zambales? I'm not sure, no, but please try to read yung documentary na and doon natin makikita, no? I remember now, kaka-search ko lang, Ibinasurang Paraiso. It was actually an eyewitness documentary, no? Wherein Cara David exposed, okay, yung illegal dump site sa Subic, Zambales, okay? And if I'm going to ask you, paano naging mechanism ang ah, ang documentary na Ibinasurang Paraiso, okay, for policy agenda. Okay? The media, okay, the media remains to be powerful because it exposes, it shows the unseen, di ba? Nakikita dito na binuwag ng um, eyewitness yung invisibility ng issue, no? 'Di ba? Sabi ko nga, 'pag invisible ang issue, hindi yan pag-uusapan ng government, no? Before na i-publicize yung yung documentary, the dump site in Sitio Tibag, Barangay Naugsol, was operating in secret. Walang nakakaalam masyado except yung mga residente malapit doon sa dump site, no? Now, nagkaroon ng agenda setting or nagkaroon ng agenda shift because the documentary framed the issue around the destruction of Aita culture, the health risks it poses, and even yung dump site has contaminated already the water sources doon. So Cara David shifted the topic from a local waste issue to a national human rights and environmental crisis. Di ba? So, anong naging resulta nito? This massive shift in public attention forced lawmakers to acknowledge a problem they had previously ignored. Kaya napakalakas ng kapangyarihan ng mga Pilipino, no? Kasi we can actually manipulate our politicians into working, no? And they cannot just simply ignore this kasi nga, of course, tayo mismo yung nakakaranas and alam mo yun, di ba? Okay. So that's just an example, no, of how media can shape our agenda. in the Philippines. Okay. Now, mag-focus tayo sa social media agenda. Okay. Yung agenda setting natin, hindi na lang kasi siya exclusive sa mga newspapers, sa radyo, sa television. Ngayon kasi sa era ng social media, doon na nagkaroon ng um, power and influence si Meta, no? The Facebook, Instagram, si X actually, even TikTok, at saka YouTube. No? Sa Pilipinas, these are the most commonly used social media platforms. And mind you guys, a single video can suddenly transform a local incident into a national issue. Okay? Tulad for example yung yung lubak-lubak doon sa Rosario La Union, di ba? We are used to be called LU, like ELYU. Ngayon bumalik na naman sa letter L and U, tapos dinagdagan ng lubog, LU, lubog, LU, lubak, 'di ba? Nakakahiya. Kasi nag-post lang sila and it made a very large noise on social media, causing now or drawing now so much attention in La Union because of the lubak-lubak na kalsada at mga kalsadang lubog sa baha dahil sa labis-labis na tag-ulan. Okay? But you have to take note, hindi lahat ng viral ay valid. Ulitin ko ha, hindi lahat ng viral ay valid. Diyan papasok yung um, misinformation, disinformation, at malinformation. Papasok din diyan yung excessive use of artificial intelligence. Okay? You have to take note that something can trend, but it doesn't mean it's fact. 'Di ba? Puwede rin siya maging mali, false, misleading, no? Something can be politically salient and still be based on distorted information, okay? And as public administrators later on, we have to be very careful. Hindi lahat ng mga napopost sa social media ay kailangan reactan natin. Kasi kung patuloy tayong mag patuloy tayong mag ah, papatol sa mga ganitong bagay, masasayang ang oras po natin kaysa i-address natin yung mga real concerns ng pamahalaan. And there are situations that something can be very important but hindi siya nagiging viral. Okay? So as future administrators po, your responsibility is not merely to ask, ano ang trending? Dapat ang lagi po ninyong tinatanong, what does the evidence actually show? Baka mamaya, minimislead lang tayo, di ba? For example, ongoing yung impeachment ni Sara Duterte. And then suddenly, biglang nag-post si na Jimmy Bondoc ng information na at saka si Harry Roque. No? Si Harry Roque, notorious yan mag-post ng mga fake news at misinformation. Sabihin nila, ayan, something bad will happen, pray for the Philippines. Pero in fact, it was just actually a strategy to mislead the people at ma-divert yung attention nila mula doon sa umiinit na impeachment trial. O, diba? Therefore, it is very important for me to reiterate na hindi lahat ng trending or hindi lahat ng viral ay valid. Okay? Kaya I always tell my students to be very critical at huwag tayong masyadong magpadalos-dalos dahil ito yung bugso ng ating damdamin. Diba? Many of my students ask na yung mga taga-DIMSU, Sir Ken, bakit hindi ka nagpo-post about Pax Silica? Diba? And sabi nila before, I am a staunch environmentalist. Definitely, no? And in fact, my position has always been against Pax Silica. But I do have reservations. I understand, no? Um, uh, I understand that Pax Silica poses major threats in terms of our environment, but it also poses threats against displacement of people. Okay? And let me explain something. So yun, I would just like to put it on record, my dear students, that my position on Pax Silica is neither outright opposition nor unconditional support. No? From my perspective as a public administration professional, I think the more appropriate question is not about simply saying, is Pax Silica good or bad? Because hindi tayo ganyan mag-isip ng mga public administration. professionals, no? Rather, as PA students, ang dapat tinatanong po ninyo is, can the Pax Silica can the government govern Pax Silica in such a way that its economic benefits are captured by Filipinos while its social, environmental, and sovereignty risks are effectively controlled. Ganyan dapat tayo mag-isip, no? Now, if I'm going to answer this question, no, I would note that there is a legitimate economic argument for supporting the initiative. Pax Silica could potentially move the Philippines further into the global value chain for semiconductors, artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing, even yung mga critical minerals po natin. And of course, it will strengthen our digital infrastructure. In the proposed new Clark City, no, it would actually serve as a hub, which is envisioned as what do you call this one? Part of a much larger supply chain ecosystem rather than merely another conventional industrial state, no? Katulad ito ng parang sa Taiwan, Singapore, yun. And doon ko nakikita yung potentiality po niya. No, for decades, my dear students, one of the structural weaknesses of the Philippine economy has been our dependence on foreign technology. No, nag-i-import tayo ng mga capital goods and relatively yung mga lower value participation in our global production. No, kung masyado kayo nakinig doon sa contemporary world ninyo, okay, take note that if Paxilica results in technology transfer, then Filipino workforce development, there would be Filipino workforce development, no? Magkakaroon tayo ng domestic research and development, magkakaroon ng higher value manufacturing, okay, of course, magbo-boost yung infrastructure development natin, and magkakaroon ng tinatawag nating genuine local industrialization. Then, definitely, these things could contribute to building greater Philippine economic capacity. In other words, participation in an international economic arrangement does not necessarily make our country more dependent. In fact, if we govern it properly, ayan, papasok na yung governance aspect na inaaral po natin. If Pax Silica is governed properly, foreign investment can actually be used to build domestic capability. No? The long-term objective should be that the Philippines eventually becomes less dependent on merely exporting raw materials and labor because we have developed our own technological industrial and human capital base. Okay? Katulad nito nung perspective ko na naman nung pandemic, na dapat ang Pilipinas ay may kakayahan ng gumawa ng bakuna. Kaya ano nangyari? Nag-angkat tayo ng Moderna, ng Sinovac, di ba? Ng Pfizer, okay? Nakakalungkot. Doon ako sa part ng economic prosperity, bukas at tinatanggap ang Pax Silica. Pero, in one of our lessons sa PA 118, no, NPM, NPS, NPA, at saka NPG, economic efficiency is not the only measure of good governance. Ah, di ba? Napagdudugtong ko na sila. Development must also be evaluated according to equity. Oh, di ba? Social equity, binanggit ko yan doon sa PA 118 po natin. Di ba? Development must be evaluated to equity, accountability, participation, sustainability, legality, and even public value. My first reservation is social equity in displacement. Okay? A project can generate billions of pesos in investment. Yes, that's correct. And it could yield thousands of jobs. And still, it may constitute poor public policy if it only benefits are the widely distributed while its costs are concentrated on a small and politically vulnerable community. No? This becomes important, my dear students. Bakit? Because our indigenous peoples and even the farmers or long-established communities would be affected. We therefore cannot simply say this project will benefit the national economy, therefore displacement is justified. The end should not justify the means. Huh? Public administrators must ask, no, who receives the benefits, who bears the cost, who participated in making the decision. Ganun dapat tayo magtanong, no? Hindi yung dahil sikat ang Paxilica because of its environmental implications, all of a sudden, nagiging environmentalist na rin kayo. Diba? Hindi dapat ganun yung ating POV, no, my dear students. Alright? Okay. So much for Pax Silica. Marami tayong pag-uusapan po dyan. But for now, yun lang muna yung pwede kong i-share po sa inyo. Now, in order for us to better understand agenda setting, I would like to actually pose Anderson's agenda setting model. Okay? Now, in this perspective, my dear students, okay, ayan, si James Anderson po, this is very recently, no, introduced yung tinatawag natin, sorry, that's my alarm. Okay. Introduce now um, the four key stages through which issues move from the public sphere to the governmental agenda. So allow me to discuss that po. No? Okay. First stage is yung problem recognition. Now, people recognize a condition as problematic. Example would be residents noticing increase in flooding in a barangay. Okay? But recognition alone is not government action. But it is important that we are now recognizing these kinds of issue. Now, from problem recognition, we proceed with stage two. Okay, issue specification. Okay, and here, we will try to define already what is happening. Bakit nangyayari ang flooding? Is it the drainage? Dahil ba mayroong improper waste disposal kung saan-saan na lang tinatambak ang basura? Is it because we have converted lands into residential areas? Wala ng mga canals or drainage? Is it because merong bara or obstruction sa river? Or is it because of a climate change induced rainfall? So issue specification, you are now trying to define what's going on. Okay? Again, framing matters because each diagnosis suggests a different intervention. And then we proceed with demand making. Now, the people demand action. Dito na papasok yung mga barangay assembly, mga petition, mga letter to the mayor, to the sanggunian, okay, etc. etc. And then, pag ito po ay na-formalize na at na-communicate na sa government, then papasok na po yung agenda. Okay? So finally, government formally recognizes the issue as something requiring attention. Now, maybe the Sanggunian schedules a hearing, no? Or the mayor orders an investigation, or a committee is created, no? And then here, funding is considered. At that point, the issue has already entered yung governmental agenda na diniscuss ko po doon sa ating synchronous class, yung systemic agenda, governmental agenda, decision agenda, at saka yung legislative agenda. Okay, now, again, just to have a quick review, ito po yung order, no, ni Anderson. Recognize the problem, specify the problem, make decision, and enter it to our agenda. Another model would be yung kay King Dons. Okay? Yung kay King Dons naman po, my dear students, ayan, okay. He argued that policy making does not always happen through a neat sequence. Okay? Ibig sabihin po niyan, may tatlo pong streams that they are flowing independently. The first one is the problem stream. You know what stream is? Hindi yung stream na ano ha, yung panonood. Okay? Stream is like a body of water. Ano ba Tagalog ng stream? Search ko lang yung Tagalog ng stream para maintindihan natin. Okay? When you say stream, it's a continuous body of surface of water that flows down a slope due to gravity. Filipino stream. Hindi ko kasi alam yung Tagalog ng stream eh. Stream is batis, ayan, or sapa. Ayan, ang stream. Okay? So, these are free-flowing factors. We have yung batis ng mga problema. So there is a recognized problem from data, various crises, the feedback, and the indicators. And then we have policy stream. There are available solutions. And then we have political stream as well. Okay? Yan. Now, yun yung gustong ipahiwatig sa atin ni King Dons. Okay? Now we proceed with the policy window. What is the policy window? This is actually or still part of King Don's idea. Okay. In this slide, we use health policy context to illustrate the convergence of the streams. And the important analytical point here is that merely memorizing the example, it is understanding the formula. For the policy stream, you should ask, may problem ba na recognize? And then you enter the policy stream. May workable ba na solution? And then political stream, may willingness ba yung mga tao na mag-serve? Okay? So, suppose may problema, pero walang viable na solution. Then, walang convergence. Suppose may solution, pero walang politicians na may pakialam. No convergence. Suppose may politicians na gustong kumilos, but the public does not perceive it as a serious problem. Again, napakahirap. So, when all three converge, then a window opens. Yan. Okay. Now, meron din tayo tinatawag na non-decision. Ano ibig sabihin ng non-decision? Okay? Kumbaga parang, di ba, pag sa relationship, a no response is also a response. Di ba? Pag walang sagot, that's a response. Di ba? Pag hindi ka niya kinikibo, ibig sabihin, hindi ka na niya mahal. Parang ganun yun. Dito naman, okay, it's the most political part of the lesson. Okay, non-decision making. Yeah. It was actually conceptualized by uh, Bachrach and or Bachrach and Baratz. No, they challenge the idea that power is visible only when someone wins a decision. Sometimes, power means preventing the decision from happening at all. And there are four mechanisms here. Okay? Number one is yung tinatawag nating direct suppression. Okay? Powerful actors actively block the issue. We also have institutional biases. The rules themselves systematically privilege certain interests. We also have anticipated reactions. Officials avoid an issue because they already know powerful groups that will oppose it. Okay, we also have agenda displacement, another issue that takes over public and governmental attention. So, if you are analyzing government, no, don't only ask, ano yung mga decisions na nagawa? We should also ask what issues were never allowed to become decisions. That is the second phase of power. Okay? And I would like to introduce to you yung tinatawag nating loss of agenda status. Okay? And there are actually factors na kailangan natin i-consider dito. Okay? Like resolution, fatigue, displacement, changing political winds, and even failure. Okay? And just to give you a context of the second phase of power, yung non-decision. Ito, di ba? Mining, okay? Tinanggal si Gina Lopez before because she is a staunch um, opposition ng mining sa Pilipinas. Okay? What are the perennial items on the Philippine policy agenda? Well, hindi matapos-tapos ang poverty and equality, yung corruption din po natin. Of course, yung peace and security dahil marami pa tayong mga NPAs, disaster risk reduction. Alam naman po natin na the Philippines belong to the typhoon belt. So, definitely talagang super affected po tayo ng bagyo kung sakasakali. And even yung Pacific Ring of Fire, health and education, and of course, infrastructure. Okay? Yun lang naman ang gusto kong i-share sa inyo sa part na to. Okay? I will still provide you a video recorded lecture for lesson 6 para makakatch up na po tayo sa ating um, week. No? And then, the next meeting, magkakaroon na po tayo ng quiz ulit. But unfortunately, I have decided that I will no longer give you online assessments because this is prone to cheating. So, yun lang naman ang sa akin. Maraming salamat sa inyong oras at pakikinig. And we'll see each other once more into our video recorded series and at the same time sa mga iba pa pong mga face-to-face interactions po natin. Have a good one and goodbye for now.